The Syntipede by Ronnie V. Diaz. When I saw my sister Delia beating my dog with a stick, I felt hate heave like a cage. Angry breeze in my chest, out in the sun. The, the hair of my sister glinted like metal, and in her brown dress, she looked like a sheared dagger. Biryuk hugged the earth and screamed, but I could not bound forward, not nor cry out to my sister. She had a weak heart, and she must not be surprised. So I held myself. My throat swelled, and I felt hate rear and plunge in its cage of babes. I was 13 when my father first took me hunting. All through the summer of the year, I had tramped alone and unarmed the fields and forests around our farm. Then one afternoon in late July, my father told me I could use his shotgun. Beyond the Eiffel Grove, in a grass-filled we spot a covey of brown pigeons in the open. They kept springing to the air and beating away every time we were within range, but finally they dropped to the ground inside a wedge of guava trees. My father pressed my shoulder and I stopped. Then slowly, in a hot crouch, we advanced. The breeze rose slightly. The grass scuffed against my bare legs. My father stopped again. He knelt down and held my hand. Wait for the birds to rise and then fire, he whispered. I pushed the safety lever of the rifle up and sight along the barrel. The saddle of the stock felt greasy on my cheek. The gun was heavy and my arm muscles twitched. My mouth was dry. I felt vaguely sick. I want to sit down. You forgot to speak, my father said. Father had told me that hunters always spot for luck before firing. I spat and I saw the breeze bend the rigging. Glassy threads of spiral toward birds. That's good, father said. Can't we throw a stone? I whispered fiercely. It's taking them a long time. No, you to wait. Suddenly, a small dog yelping cheerily came tearing across the brooding plain of grass and small trees. It raced across the plain in long swirly swoops. On on outraged chunks that disappeared and flashed alternately in the light of the cloud bank sound. One of the birds whistled and the covey disappeared like
Seeds thrown in the wind. I fired, my body shook with the fierce, cemetery life on the raffle. I saw three finger floaters in the last convulsive effort to stay afloat, then fall to the ground. The shoot did not scare the dog. He came to us, sniffing cautiously. He circled around us until snapped my finger, and then he came to me. Not bad, my father said, grinning. Three birds with one tube. I went to the brush to get the birds. The dog ambled after me. He found the birds for me. The breast of one of the birds was turned. The bird had fallen on a spot where the earth was worn bare, and its blood was spread like a tiny red rug. The dog scraped the blood with his tongue. I picked up the birds, and its warm, mangled flesh flung on the palm hand. Your clean is, I said to the dog. Here, come here. I offered him my bloody palm. He came to me and licked my palm clean. The dog, he put the birds in leather bag, which he carried strapped around his waist. Father looked at me a minute, and then said, well, I'm not sure that dog belongs to somebody. May I keep him until owner comes for him? I foresaw he'd make a good pointer. Father remarked, but I would not like my son to be accused of dog stealing. Oh no, I said quickly, I shall return him when the owner comes to claim him. Alright, he said, I hope that dog makes a hunter out of you. Period and become fast friends. Every afternoon after school we went to Tall Glacier with the flash snow. Father was away most of the time, but when he was home he hunted with us. Berryups come up and my sister flung the stick at him, then she turned about and she saw me. Eddie, come here, she commanded. I approached with apprehension, slowly, almost carefully. She reached over and twisted my ear. I don't want to see that dog again. I don't want to see that dog again in the house. She said kindly that dog destroyed my slippers again. I still dare to kill that dog if I see it around again. She flew to one side of my face with her hot moist hand and shoved my rudely. I tumbled the I tumbled to the ground, but I did not cry or protest. I had passed that phase now. Every word and gesture she hurled at me, I could and feed to my growing and useless feet. My sister was my creature. I knew she was it when I was born. The day my mother died, all thought we continued to live in the same house. She had gone, it seemed, to another country. From here, she looked at me with increasing ennui in contempt. One of my first solid memories was of standing before a grass hut. Their door was covered with white banana stalk, and there was a small box filled with crushed and dismissable flowers in one corner a dahlias.
Through the flesh, under the red armor, I wish this liquid oozed out. Then I made sure it was dead by brushing its antennae. The centipede did not move. I wrapped it in a handkerchief. My sister was enthroned in a large chair in the porch of the house. Her back was turned away from the door. She sat facing the window. She was embroidering a strip of white cloth. I went near. I stood behind her chair. She was not aware of my presence. I unwrapped the centipede. I threw it in her lap. My sister's shirt and the strip of white sheet flipped off like an unhooded hawk. She shot up from her chair, turned around, and she saw me, but she collapsed again to her chair, clutching her breast. Doubled up with pain, the centipede had fallen to the floor. You did it, the gasp. You tried to kill me. You held life. You tried. Her voice broke off into a pale, spoken moan. I was engulfed by a sudden feeling of pity and guilt. But it's dead. I cried, kneeling before her. It's dead. Look, look. Snatched up the centipede and crushed its head between my fingers. It's dead. My sister did not move. I held the centipede before her like a hunter displaying the tail of deer, save that the centipede fell turning in my hand.
Boggling his name. I found him under a low tree bush. I called him and he only screamed. Then I saw that one of his eyes was bleeding. I sat on the ground and looked closer that I had been perceived. That stick of my sister and stabbed eyes of my dog. I was stunned for a long time. I sat motionless, starting at Berryuk. Then I felt hate crush. It paused dog. It healed self. It pushed dog hard into the floor or it caged a bunched muscle. Then it healed itself for a minute. Then then it sprang and the door of the cage crashed. Open the heat loud widely my latch sheltered him. I did not run after him. A large hawk whirled gracefully above a group of birds. It flew in the tightening spiral above the bird. On my way back to the house, I passed the woodshed. I saw Berto in the shade of a tree, splitting wood. He was splitting the wood he had stuck last year. A mound of bone white slat was built near his chopping block. When he saw me, he stopped and called me. His head was his head was drenched with sweat. He brushed away the sweat and hair from his eyes and said to me, "I've got something for you." He dropped his axe and walked into the woodshed. I followed him. Berto went to a corner of the shed. I was just sack spread on the ground. Berto stopped and picked up the sack. "Look, he said. I approached Finn to the ground. By a piece of wood was big centipede. Its malignantly red body twitched back and forth. It's large. I said. I found him under the stack. I chopped. Berto smiled. Happy. He looked at me with his moody eyes. "You know," he said, "that son of a devil nearly frightened me to death. I, s- I stiffed did did it already," he said, trying to control my racing voice. Berto was telling, grinning at it felt hot all over. "I did not expect to find any centipede here," he said, and nearly beat me. Beat me. Who would get shocked? He bent and picked up a piece of wood. "This wood has wear," he said, and put down the block. Then I picked it up like this, and this centipede was coiled were right here. I nearly touched it with my hand. "That do you think you would feel?" "I think not," answer. I squat to look in the reptile, and its antennae quivered. Researching tense after ear, I picked up a sliver of wood and prodded the centipede. It uncoiled viciously. It pinchers slashes slashed at the tiny spear. I could carry it did. I said half aloud. "Yes, Berto. I did not kill him because I knew you would like it." "Yes, you're right. That's bigger than one of found last year. Is not it?" "Yes, it's very much bigger."
I stuck the silver into the carapace of the centipede. It went cradled in the box. It was my sister's playhouse, and I remembered she told me to keep out of it. She was not around, so I went in the fresh banana hides were cold under my feet. The interior of the hut was rife with the sour smell of damp dead grass against the flowers. The doll looked incredibly heavy. I picked it up. It was light, but It had hard, unflexing leaves. I tried to bend one of the legs, and it snapped. I stared with horror at the hollow tube that was the leg of the doll. Then I saw my sister coming. I hid the leg under one of the banana plants. She was running, and I knew she was furious. The walls of the house suddenly constrict me. I felt sick with a nameless pain. My sister pushed me hard, and I crashed against the wall of the hut. The flimsy wall collapsed over me. I heard my sister screaming. She denounced me in a high, wild voice, and my body ached with fear. She seized one of the saplings that held off the hat and hit me again and again until the flesh of my back and tight sung with pain. Then suddenly my sister moaned. She stiffened in the sapling fell from her hand, and quietly, as Doc as Lynn were lowering her, she sank to the ground. Her eyes were wild as scud, and on the edges of her lips, drawn tight over her teeth, quivered a white lace of frost. I ran to the house yelling for father. She came back from the hospital in the city, pale and quiet and mean brain, it seemed, of all emotions. She moved and acted with the keen perversity and deceptive dullness of a shielded knife, concealing in her body the awful power for inspiring fear and pain and hate. Not always with its drawn blade, but only with its fearful sheath, defined by the sheath as her meanness was defined by her body. Nothing I did ever please her. She destroyed while free anything I like. At first, I took it as a process of adoption, a step of adjustment. I snatched and crushed every seed of anger she planted in me, but later on I realized that it had become a habit with her. I did not say anything when she told Berto to kill my monkey because it snickered at her one morning while she was brushing her teeth. I did not say anything when she told father that she did not like my pigeon house because it stunk and I had to give away my pigeons. And Berto had to chop the house and to kindling wood. I learned how to hold myself because I knew we had to put up with her whims to keep her calm and quiet. But when she dumped my butterflies into a waste can and bumped them in the backyard, I realized that she was beating me. My butterflies never snickered at her and they did not smell. I keep I keep them in an unused cabinet in the living room. Unless she opened the drawers, they were out of her sight, and she knew too that my butterfly collection had grown with me. But when I arrived home one afternoon from school, I found my butterflies in a can, burned in their cotton beads like decals. I wept, and father had to call my sister for an explanation. She stood straight and calm before father, but my clear-loved eyes saw only her harsh and arrogant spirit. She looked at me curiously, but she did not say anything. Father began gently to question her. She listened politely, and when father
Please stop talking, she said with the crush. Heat or concern they were attracting us. I ran after